Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive. Today we're taking on a topic that's shrouded in mystery and often misunderstood: the Darknet and Deep Web.
It's a fascinating area full of complexities and misconceptions.
Absolutely. And to help us navigate this digital labyrinth, we have Jörg-Owe work, Darknet and Deep Web, as our guide.
Schneppat really lays it all out, giving us a clear roadmap for understanding this often hidden world.
So let's start with the basics. What exactly is the Darknet and how is it different from the Deep Web?
Yeah, those terms get thrown around a lot and people tend to lump them together, but Schneppat makes a clear distinction.
Okay, lay it on us.
Think of the deep web as anything on the internet that isn't indexed by those standard search engines we all use. You know, like your online banking portal or a password-protected forum.
Ah, so it's not necessarily about being secretive or illegal, just hidden from view?
Exactly. Now, the Darknet is a smaller subset within that deep web. It refers to networks that are intentionally hidden, requiring specific software to access.
That's where things get a bit more cloak and dagger.
You could say that. And one of the most well-known tools for accessing the Darknet is Tor, the onion router.
Ah, yes, Tor. I've heard of it, but never really understood how it works.
Well, imagine your internet traffic being bounced through multiple layers of encryption. It's like putting your data in a package, then wrapping it in layers and layers of wrapping paper. Makes it near impossible to trace back to the sender.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture. And I've also heard of something called I2P, or garlic routing. Is that related?
It is. It's another way to access the Darknet, but Schneppat explains that it's even more complex than Tor.
How so?
Imagine chopping up your message, sending each piece through a different route, then reassembling it at the destination. Like a digital jigsaw puzzle designed for ultimate privacy.
Wow, so it's like this constant cat and mouse game between those seeking privacy and those trying to monitor them.
Absolutely. Schneppat highlights this back and forth as a key driver of innovation in the Darknet world, always pushing the boundaries of what's possible with technology.
So it's not just a haven for hackers and criminals, as the media often portrays it.
Not at all. Schneppat emphasizes that we need to move past those sensationalized headlines. There's a whole other side to the Darknet.
Okay, so what else is happening on the Darknet? Paint us a picture.
Think about whistleblowers trying to expose corruption, or journalists working in repressive regimes where freedom of speech is suppressed. The Darknet can be a lifeline for them, a way to communicate securely and share information without fear.
That's a powerful point. It's not just about hiding. It's about accessing information that's otherwise restricted or dangerous to obtain.
Right. And Schneppat even talks about how researchers and intelligence analysts are using the Darknet to understand emerging threats.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
Well, they use tools like Authenticate's Silo for secure browsing and Navigator for threat monitoring, gaining insights that wouldn't be possible on the regular web.
So there's a whole world of intelligence gathering happening on the Darknet using specialized tools. That's fascinating.
It is. But as Schneppat points out, there are definitely ethical considerations here. These tools can be used for good, but they also raise questions about privacy and surveillance.
Right, that makes sense. Anonymity can protect the vulnerable, but it can also be exploited. It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about this whole other side to the Darknet, beyond the stereotypical criminal activity. But where does ethics come into play? I know that Schneppat really digs into this.
Yeah, he really does. Schneppat argues that you can't really discuss the Darknet without addressing this fundamental tension between, individual privacy and the need for collective security,
It's like that age-old question, right? If you could expose some huge injustice, but it meant potentially putting yourself or others in danger, would you do it? That question takes on a whole new meaning when we're talking about the Darknet.
Exactly. And Schneppat emphasizes that this dilemma isn't unique to the Darknet. It's something we grapple with constantly on the surface web, too. I mean, think about how much data we willingly share with companies through our online activities every single day.
It's true. Every time we use social media, shop online, or even just browse the web, we leave this trail of data that can be collected and analyzed. And most of us don't even give it a second thought.
And that's part of the problem, as Schneppat sees it. We've become so accustomed to this data-driven world that we've kind of lost sight of what's at stake. He reminds us that our personal information, our online identities, are valuable and deserve protection.
Absolutely. But how do we actually protect ourselves, especially in a space as complex and, let's be honest, kind of confusing as the Darknet?
Well, Schneppat is a huge advocate for encryption. He argues that it's one of the most powerful tools we have to safeguard our data. Think of it like a digital shield that makes your information unreadable to anyone who doesn't have the key.
Okay, that makes sense for protecting the data itself.
Mm-hmm.
But what about those times when someone tries to access our accounts or devices without permission?
Strong passwords are essential. Schnepphead is really adamant about this. He stresses the importance of long, unique passwords for each of your online accounts.
Easier said than done, right? I feel like I've got a million passwords to keep track of.
Yeah, I hear you. That's where a password manager comes in handy. It stores all your passwords securely, so you only have to remember one master password. Life-changing, honestly.
Noted. I'm adding password manager to my to-do list right now. But let's shift gears for a minute and talk about law enforcement. Schnepphat acknowledges that investigating criminal activity on the Darknet is incredibly difficult, right?
He does. And he lays out these three main challenges. The first is the technical hurdles. Imagine trying to track a suspect in a physical city, but instead of streets and buildings, you have this ever-changing maze of encrypted data.
That sounds like searching for a needle in a digital haystack.
Right. And remember, criminals on the Darknet are using the same sophisticated anonymity tools that we discussed earlier. That makes it super tough for law enforcement to trace their activities, collect evidence, and ultimately hold them accountable.
Okay, so it's technically challenging. What about resource limitations? How do those factor in?
Schnepphat argues that many law enforcement agencies simply don't have the budget or the staff to keep up with the speed at which cybercrime is evolving on the Darknet. They're always playing catch-up, trying to get the technology, expertise, and personnel they need.
And this is a global issue, right? These cybercriminals can be operating from anywhere in the world.
Exactly. Which makes it even harder for law enforcement agencies to coordinate efforts across borders. And this leads us to the third challenge that Schnepphat highlights: training gaps. Many officers just don't have the specialized knowledge and skills to effectively investigate cybercrime. It's a whole new frontier, and it demands a different approach.
So it's not just about having the right tools, it's about having people who know how to use them and understand this unique environment.
Absolutely. Schnepphat is a strong advocate for things like increased funding for cybercrime units, more training programs for law enforcement, and more international cooperation. He believes that a collaborative, well-equipped approach is crucial.
I can see his point. And even with all of that, there's still that ethical tightrope to walk, right? Balancing security with the right to privacy, especially in a space as anonymous as the Darknet.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's where we'll pick up in part 3, where Schnepphat delves into potential solutions and calls for a more nuanced understanding of what anonymity really means.
All right, so we've really dug into the challenges, ethical dilemmas, and the overall complexity of the Darknet. Where do we go from here? What's Schnepphat's take on potential solutions?
Schnepphat argues that simply reacting to the Darknet isn't enough. It's not just about playing catch-up with criminals. It's about preventing crime and encouraging responsible use right from the start.
So shifting from a purely law enforcement perspective to something more proactive and society-focused.
Exactly. He stresses the importance of education and awareness, giving individuals the knowledge and skills they need to navigate this digital world safely and responsibly.
Basically, digital literacy. Teaching people how to evaluate information, spot those potential risks, and make smart choices online.
Precisely. Schnepphat believes that demystifying the Darknet, educating people about its complexities and how to use it ethically is key.
It's like learning to drive. You wouldn't just hand someone the keys to a car without teaching them the rules of the road first, the dangers, how to actually operate it safely.
That's a great analogy. And Schnepphat sees this responsibility extending beyond individuals, too. He calls for greater collaboration between governments, tech companies, and those civil society organizations, to develop comprehensive educational programs and resources.
It takes a village, right? A collective effort to build a more informed and responsible digital society.
Absolutely. And he also highlights the importance of ethical hacking. And cybersecurity research. He believes that encouraging ethical hackers to find and report those vulnerabilities can actually help make these systems more secure.
So harnessing the skills of the tech community, those who understand this world, to make the internet a safer place for everyone.
Exactly. And Schnepphat thinks this proactive approach can help us stay ahead of the curve, anticipating and mitigating potential threats before they can do any real damage.
It's like having a team of digital first responders, constantly on the lookout, making sure everything runs smoothly.
That's a great way to put it. And Schnepphat really emphasizes that this kind of approach is crucial for creating a safer and more trustworthy online environment for everyone.
Well, I think Schneppad has definitely given us a lot to ponder. This deep dive has been fascinating, eye-opening, and honestly a little bit humbling.
Yeah, I agree.
It's clear that the darknet and deep web are constantly evolving complex landscapes, and there are no easy answers.
Definitely not.
But Schneppat's work offers a valuable framework. It helps us navigate these uncharted waters, and he encourages us to approach these issues with a sense of curiosity, critical thinking, and a willingness to work together.
Yep.
And ultimately, it's up to all of us, each and every one of us, to shape the future of the internet, both the surface web and the darknet. We have the power to make it a force for good, a platform for innovation, connection, and progress.
I couldn't agree more.
But that requires awareness, responsibility, and a willingness to engage in these tough conversations. So to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the darknet and deep web.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
Keep learning, stay curious, and remember, the more we understand these complexities, the better equipped we'll be to navigate the digital world safely, ethically, and responsibly. Until next time.